Yeah. See, now let's look at a couple of important functions which are more in linkage with VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, more of referencing functions. See, we yesterday when we looked at VLOOKUP, the focus was I want to search for something, and when a match has occurred, I'm retrieving some value and displaying it. But some limitation which we have observed with the VLOOKUP was it will search only in the first column or in the first row only. It does not search anywhere else. Now here let's say I have a question. We have already created the top 10 and bottom 10 using our formulas, right? Using our large and small formulas, we have created the top 10 and bottom 10. Now using this, can I use VLOOKUP to pull out the date on which this 9.8% has occurred, the date on which the 9.72 has occurred, and the symbol for which this has occurred? I can do that, but only under the condition that the 9.8%, the values whatever are there, they should be in the first column of the master. If here we have them in the G column, right? Let's say if I say this is my master, then they are in the first column of the master. But what do I need to retrieve? I need to retrieve the date, the symbol, which are not in the master anywhere. If I say master is from G column, the symbol as well as date are not there in the master. So one alternative for me to work that out is pull the symbol and the date, make a copy of them probably after the G column, somewhere in I, J, wherever it is, make a copy of them there. Or take the G column daily returns into the A column. Okay, let's, we'll talk about other mechanism also. But for time being, what I would like to do is I'll copy this and I'll insert. Why is not able to insert? Okay, the sheet is protected. Because the sheet was protected, it's not allowing me to do the pasting. So let's remove the protection on the sheet. Okay, so let me copy this and do an insert copied cells here. Right? Now, just to revise the VLOOKUP, I am doing that. But otherwise, it's not a better way to do it. I'll tell you why. So, here, let's say I want the date on which this 9.8% has occurred. Now, this is my master. I'll take this entire thing probably because I need only the symbol and the date. I'll take only, let's say, something up to here as my master. Doesn't matter. Even I can take only up to ABC itself because what I require are only the symbol and the date. Right? So I'll take this as the master, create a name for it. Right? Probably I'll call it as stock details or something. Now I'll use a VLOOKUP formula equal to VLOOKUP shift F3, the lookup value being this one. The table array I can use it from the formula, which is the stock details. The column index, I need the date, which is in the C column now, which is the third column. So I'll put 3 here and an exact match where the 9.8 is exactly matching there. It will pull that out. So it is directly giving me 40932, which is the serial number associated with that particular date. So change the format of the date control 1, change the format of the date to a proper date format, any one of these. It gives that 24th Jan 2012, that was the return that was generated. And probably if I drag this down, I'll get the similar kind of effects for other returns also. 28th February 2012, 9.72% has occurred, and so on. But the same thing I can do for the symbol also. I can do a VLOOKUP, get the second column instead of the third column. Right, so here just for another usage, VLOOKUP, I am looking up for this 9.8%. In the table array, again the stock details. This time I will pull the column index 2 with an exact match. So it gives me that Canara Bank is the one which has registered like that. And after that, these are the stuff. So this is how the numbers are coming up. No issues. But what has happened in the process? We have made a duplicate copy of the G column, I mean earlier G column, now H column, again in the A column. Right? So tomorrow if there is some other requirement, I may have to do one more copy of that. Something else has to come into the first row. So what happens in this process is, if something else comes into the first row, either we are making multiple copies of the same column at multiple places to get our requirement. And even in that, the problem will come tomorrow when I am copying the data from somewhere. It will be only in this format, right? Let's say someone else is copying for some other bank, right? Only this much is available from wherever the source they have copied it, which means explicitly you have to make sure that you are copying that A column again, or whatever comes in this last column again is made in the A column. So there is always a chance of human error in all those cases, right? And tomorrow if I want it on the close price or something else, again I will get that one into the first column. So there is no end to getting something into the first column just to make the VLOOKUP work. So that is where, wherever the item which we are searching for is not in the first column of the master, is in some other column, let's say like a G column here. Wherever what we are searching for is not in the first column or in the first row, VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP will not work. And just to make them work, I don't need to make duplicate copies of the data, because probably I'll show slightly later that the one major thing you have to avoid in Excel is Control C, Control V. The thing to avoid completely, because there are some problems which we will discuss once we are done with this. So it's not worth making multiple copies of the data, especially of the input data. The data which I get from some other source, there is no point in making multiple copies of that. The reason being, all these multiple copies are independent of each other. If you had to change the data at some point, you have to make sure that you are changing it at 20 different places if you have made 20 copies of it, which will create all kinds of havoc in the industry. Most of the biggest problem today the companies are facing with respect to Excel is Control C, Control V problem. Because the moment you make a multiple copy, there is no connection between the first copy versus the second copy. And you don't know in which copy you are making a change, in the first one or in the second one. And they will not be in sync at all. Some formulas you will apply on first copy, some formulas you will apply on second copy. And only when the real problem, and Excel does not give you outright way where the problem is occurring also. Even going through the problem and error is a very difficult thing through Excel. It's more like do it right the first time rather than trying to dig up where the problem has come. That's a big painful problem with respect to Excel. Right? So from those perspectives, my suggestion would be always not to create multiple copies of any data or the column. So if some column is not in, whatever you want to search for is not in the first row or in the first column, but still you want to perform the search, a combination of match and index will solve the problem. Instead of depending on VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP, in that case, the combination of these two formulas, match and index, will actually solve your problem. So you can, even if the data, if you are master, it's more like an improvised version over VLOOKUP. Match and index are improvised versions over VLOOKUP, where probably the way the match function works is, whatever you want to search, 9.8 is what I wanted to search. Now for that matter, let me delete this, or I don't want to delete this. Let me do the remaining again, the date as well as symbol here, but not consider the A column at all. Let me consider only from B column. So in this data, I want to search for 9.8 on this H column. Right? The way the match gives output is, it gives the location where that value is present. It does not give the second column value or third column. It does not give cell values. VLOOKUP was giving cell values. Right? If the match has occurred, second column value or third column value is what is pulling out and displaying to us. But the match, what it displays is, it does not display the value of a cell. It displays the address of the cell. Which means if I am applying the match on a column, it gives me the row number where it is present. So it will say like 23 something. It will give me the output as 23. It means in 23rd row, the data is present. What you are searching for is present in the 23rd row. Now we can decide which value you want from the 23rd row. Now I am getting a hold saying 23rd row is what is the data. Right? So the index will give me the cell value corresponding to a row and column. So in row I get now, using match I am getting the row number. Whatever column, if I want the date, I will say third column. Third column, 23rd row, get the date and display. So index is a function which always gives me the intersection of row number and column number, one particular cell value. Whereas in that, for bringing out the date, the column number is always fixed, third column. But the row number is variable. That row number is being given by my match function. So a combination of these two will directly pull out the date or whatever I want. Right? Let's try out using the match function here. So let me use a formula called match. As I said, it's more like a lookup. What to search, where to search. These two are same. But it will not give what to display. It will directly say what is the row number. If you are searching in a column, it will give what is the row number. If you are searching in a row, it will give what is the column number. You can always search only in a single column or in a single row. Whatever, whichever is the column. It need not be A column or first column or 10th column or whatever. Right? So let's try using the match. I am saying match. The lookup value and lookup array are exactly like your what to look up and where to look up. The lookup value is you search for this 9.8%. Then where to look up, this 9.8 is present in this H column. So I am asking search for that 9.8% in this entire data. and do it as an exact match. 0 is an exact match. So do it as an exact match. Wherever 9.8% is found in that data, it will give me the row number of that. So 559th row of the data contains 9.8%. Let's see. Let's go and see what it is. You go to this, probably I can watch it using the go to. On the home tab, I'll say find and select, go to, and I can give the number, probably A559. Go to A559, so it will go and highlight 9.8%. So without even scrolling down, I am able to find out which row contains 9.8%. 559th row of my data contains 9.8%. Right? Now, the remaining things, let's quickly drag them down. So if you want 7.8%, 1547th row contains that. So let's go there. Let's check it out to see whether our formula is correct. %7.88%, 1547th row. Right? So it is giving a control over the row. Because I am searching on a column, it gives me which row I am searching for. Whatever is the row number, it is directly giving me. Now, using that as the input and using the index function, index will give me a value, a cell value. If I say index 1547, 3, it gives me an answer as 3rd Jan 12. Right? Or if I select only this column and I say 1547, 1, then also it gives me 3rd Jan 2012 itself. Because in our selection, 1547th row, first column, not from the sheet. From our selection, 1547th row, first column, which is nothing but 3rd Jan 2012. It gives me that as the output, which is what I require to display the date. Right? So all we give here in the date here is index it is asking for the selection, which is an array, row number and column number. So selection I will always do, because I need the date here. Selection I do only the C column, though I can do the whole thing and say 3rd column, or I can select only the date column and say 1st column always. The row number is 559th row, which I will select from here, because if the number changes here, the value changes there. Instead of writing 559, I will pull from that location. That location is nothing but match location. Right? That location is a match location. So if the match changes, because the number changes here, automatically the input to the index also changes. So automatically the date also changes. And the first column. So corresponding to this, I'll get the date 40932, change the format, Control 1, make it into a date format, 24th Jan 12. The same thing which has been given here through the VLOOKUP, we got through the combination of index and match as well. But the only thing is here we don't need to even change the data. We don't need to bring the returns data to the first column. Whereas if I have to use VLOOKUP, I have to mandatorily get the returns data into the first column. Otherwise VLOOKUP will not work, because VLOOKUP will search only in the first column or in the first row of the data itself. Whereas what we wanted to search here, 9.8%, is not there in the first column or first row of the data. So if that's the case, I cannot do a searching and I cannot retrieve the values. So the only alternative for me is use the combination of match and index. Match and index is always a kind of a superset over VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP is like a special case of this combination, which will work only when what you wanted to search is in the first row or first column of your master. If it is not, then you have no other alternative apart from using the combination of index and match. We'll try to use this again for pulling out the symbol also. Equal to index array. This time, because I need the symbol, I'll select the B column. Row number, again I'll select the same. And column number is always 1 because I am only selecting one column. If I select multiple columns, I'll tell you why I am not selecting multiple columns also, right? But in general case, as long as it is possible, it's better to select only one column and display column number as 1. The reason being, I'll just come to that. So here it is CanBank. So you are getting exactly the same numbers which you have got here. You are getting here also. But the only difference being this required mandatory copying of the duplicating of the returns data into the first column. Whereas in case of match, there was no requirement for mandatory duplication of the data into the first column. Even with the existing data itself, we can use the combination of index and match to typically retrieve our data. Right? Now, why didn't I look at the whole 2 columns or 3 columns? See here probably what I could have done. Right? I'll show you the other way I could have done. Instead of looking only at the C column as the array, let's say I select B and C or BCD. Right? Instead of just the C column, let me select BCD. If that's the case, what should I display? For the date, I can select second column because B contains the symbol, C contains the date, D contains something else. Because I want the date, I'll say second column has to be retrieved in the selection, just like your VLOOKUP. In the selection, I want the second column to be displayed. So I'll still get the date. No harm in that. No issues with that. But still, why I did not do this activity is, just assume that between B and C, some new column got inserted. Sorry. Between B and C, let's say some new column got inserted due to some reason. We don't know what is the reason, but some other data got inserted. Right? Now see what is happening to the output here. The output is becoming 0 Jan 000. The reason being, in our formula, now if you see what has happened, though we have selected from B to D, because we have inserted one more new column, the selection has automatically become from B to E. Row number is still remaining the same. Column number is still remaining 2. Because 2 is like explicitly entered into the formula. It's a constant which is entered into the formula. Right from yesterday we have been discussing, no constant should be entered directly into the formula unless it is mandatorily required. Because it will restrict the dynamicness and there are chances that it will destroy the working of the system, which is what is being viewed here. It is retrieving the second column, which is the C column. Because C column contains no data, automatically all our output is becoming 0s and 0, 0, 0, which is a no meaning stuff. And it takes too much of a time for us to see. Generally, we don't see that, oh, just by inserting one column, some other error is coming somewhere. Generally, it's not something which we would think even. There's so much of data. Just by inserting one column in the data, some other calculations got impacted. Right? We generally don't think to that level. But when I am sending this data to my client or to my boss or someone, the moment he sees the data, he finds that these are all showing as 0s and 0, 0, which is what is a big problem. Right? Though it's a very small problem, just you delete that column, the whole data is again back. If you just see, you just delete this column, everything is fine. Right? So sometimes when you are using multiple columns, this is the problem with VLOOKUP also. In VLOOKUP also, what do? Wherever we have used, even yesterday we have used couple of applications of VLOOKUP. Just look at this, the date month conversion which we have done. Right? This one. Right? Now just go to the master data. Where is the master? Oh, hidden, right? Go to this master data and just insert 2 new columns. Somewhere, because of some other reason, somewhere you did this activity, let's say. Just look at the months. Month text is showing 0. The reason being, in your formula there was an explicit constant. What is your formula here? You just look at that. There is a number 3 which you have explicitly written. Right? That 3 will never change. Though you have added some new columns in your master data, the 3 will never change. It will always pull the value from the third column. Third column does not have the data. So that's where it is giving us the wrong text. So to whatever extent possible, it's always advised not to use any constant in the formula. If you want to develop a very sophisticated Excel model, it's always advisable not to use any kind of constant in the formula. Even if it is a very simple stuff, it's advised not to use any kind of constant into the formula for this simple reason. Though here you might have just done because you wanted to do something else on the data, so you inserted one more column. But you have to realize that in case you have used VLOOKUPs, it is going to affect your answers. So even a small one column increase in your data can have a very serious impact on the output. Right? So that's one of the prime reasons why I did not select multiple columns and write the column number. While using match, I have selected only one column at a time and wrote one column, column number 1. The reason is, even if new column is inserted, now instead of doing it as columns B to D and then trying out the second column or something, if I only say C and say first column, what happens with this process is, even if a new data is entered here, this will not be affected. Whereas in the earlier case, it would have definitely affected. Right? So that's one of the prime reasons, wherever possible, don't try to write explicit constant. 1 means it's only one column. So because the column number is already changing, so it will be the same column. But when you are putting 2 or 3, what happens is from that location, see, a new column might have been inserted between 2 columns. So the second column will now be the new column rather than the old column. The 2 will never become 3 unless it is a cell reference. If it is explicitly typed as 2 or 3 there, it will never increase. Right? That's one of the prime reasons in the usage of match or VLOOKUP. To whatever extent possible, we have to make sure that none of the constants are being written into the formula. If they are written, then please be aware that any change, any new columns and all you have to insert in the data, you just look at the impact analysis of all the VLOOKUPs which you have used. Are their values changing? Right? So this is one way you can retrieve your max and min. The advantage of this is it's fully dynamic. The moment one of the changes occurs, let's say 10%. What happened? Okay. Because here this is one more problem. Here we changed it to 10%, but we did not change it in the A column. Now we have made multiple copies of the data for VLOOKUP purpose. Right? Because I did not change it to 10% here, it has given me NA going with the VLOOKUP mechanism. Going with the index mechanism, it worked. See, even if it was not there, going with the index and match, it has shown ICICI Bank 9th November. Whereas using the VLOOKUP mechanism, it was showing NA. Because it's not able to trace the 10% there. Right? So that's one of the another disadvantage. Probably if I am making multiple copies, I am changing it at one place, but the change is not reflecting at the other place. Right? And immediately, let's say instead of 10, I make it 9. The position also will be changed accordingly. Now ICICI Bank will go somewhere in the middle. You see here, it has come to the 6th position. The 9%. So there is an automatic updation in the top 10 positions, which was not possible earlier, either through the usage of your sort and filters, nor through the conditional formatting. Conditional formatting was dynamically updating it, but we are not getting all the 10 at one single place. Whereas this formula based mode is giving all the 10 at one single place for me. Right? Same thing now here I can do for the bottom 10. You can try them out. We can do it for turnovers. Everything is the same. Now if I want the top turnover, just for the case, right, I'll do it as 1 to 10. So we'll get the value, turnover value. So using the large function, right, using the large function, I'll get what is the highest turnover. So I'll do it on the G column, and the kth largest will be the first largest. If I select 1, it will give me the first largest, and so the highest turnover happens to be 2,28,000. Now simply I am dragging it down to get my top 10 turnovers. These are the top 10 turnovers altogether. I want to find out on which day they have occurred. So I can use the match function. But if I have to use VLOOKUP, now I have to bring turnovers to the first column. It's going to be a painful exercise. Now turnover will be one data set. Then for daily returns, it is from something else. At the end, it simply comes out like almost everything is having 2 columns, which will make the total analysis fully cluttered, right? Okay, I am using the match. The lookup value is, I'll search for this. The lookup array here is the Z column and an exact match. So it's saying 18th. Okay, it's showing a date format, but I want it. Oh, this is the match, right? So because this is the match, I'll actually do. Okay, we'll do a format change where we'll put general format. So 18th column, 18th row contains this much amount, 2,28,490. Now I drag this down. These are the row numbers which contain these numbers. Now I'll find out the date. So for which I will use index formula. Index, shift F3. Array is, because I want the date, I select the C column. The row number will become this number and the column number will be 1. With this I get the date as 30th November 2011. On 30th November 2011, there was a turnover of 2,28,000. Drag it down. You will get that these are the dates on which these turnovers are recorded. Again, by which bank? Again, I can use one more index function on the symbol this time. This time my array will be the B column. Row number will be 18. Column number is 1. So ICICI Bank has registered a turnover of 2,28,000 on 30th November. Then there are so many SBIs with so much of turnover. Only SBI and ICICI Bank has registered highest turnover, top 10 turnovers. SBI has registered 7 times, ICICI Bank has registered 3 times in this particular year. Right? So we can, and once the data changes, this report automatically changes. We don't need to do anything on the report. So from that standpoint, people use these kind of reports. Very, very helpful kind of reports. You especially use index and match is a very dynamic usage today, right? Because we can search on any column and retrieve the values of any other column, which is what is making the combination of index and match very, very powerful compared to VLOOKUPs. VLOOKUP is more like a specialized version of this combination, which will work only when the data to be searched is in the first column or in the first row. But in general, even if it is in the first column or in the first row, I can still resort to index plus match combination. Right? It's not that in that time I have to use VLOOKUP only. If I am comfortable using index and match, wherever the data is present, I can simply do the searching based on that. Right? So you can very well think of multiple scenarios where these combined formula, typically match will have a very good power when it is used with index, because match as such is giving a row number or a column number. If I am searching on a column, it will give me a row number. If I am searching on a row, it will give me a column number. Just with that number, I don't have any use. Okay, something is there in the 50th row. What to do? Unless from the 50th row, I pull out something else, there is no meaning to that. I mean, I cannot use it elsewhere. Because, okay, just by knowing 50th row, so what? But in the 50th row, you pull something else, you display something else, then there is a lot of advantage that is coming using the match function. So match and index always go together, which will act as a very good substitute to the usage of lookups. So that's where again these are treated as a part of the referencing and indexing kind of formulas, which will give a lot of dynamicness, especially for powerful users of Excel. Even for various dashboards and reports creation also, these two go as very powerful tools to be used, because you pull out the data from any location and display it at any other location also, right? All right.